Everybody good to call this meeting to order for the Strathcona Gardens open meeting for Wednesday, June 16th. I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to adopt the public agenda.
Move adoption.
Second.
And any discussion? Would just like to just a verbal update when we get to it under staff reports, just on the restart plan and the potential opportunity for fans or spectators in the facility. I'm getting lots of questions, so if we could have just a verbal update if there is any.
Absolutely.
And I'll say, is there any anyone opposed to receipt of the adoption of the public agenda? Hearing none, any petitions or delegations? I don't think we have any. Adoption of the May 12th previous meeting minutes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from the minutes? And no public considerations. Chair's report. All I can say is that every opportunity that I have in discussion with either MLA Babchuk or Minister Osborne, I close with the word recreate, and I don't say anything more than that. And we are anxiously waiting for what that news may be. So that's all I have. Don't really think we need receipt of that, do we, Mr. Yates?
No, that's fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So staff reports. I1, recreate detailed design phase.
Move receipt.
And Commissioner Lee, was that you seconding?
I
Yes.
seconded it.
Well, no, Evans seconded
It
it.
doesn't matter.
Commissioner Evans, thank you. And to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Corrine will speak to, I think, of all of these. So we'll give it to Corrine.
Great. Through the CEO and through the chair to the commission members today. Today you have several reports on the agenda that relate to the Recreate project as we entered into the detailed design phase. As you are all aware, we're moving into the detailed design stage, allows the regional district to be closer to a shovel-ready project and realistic timelines that are viewed favorably with funding opportunities. It is recognized that getting through this stage allows the regional district to continue to seek all grant opportunities, whether those initiatives and targets relate to stimulating the economy after the pandemic, sustainability initiatives, accessibility or inclusion, or any other aspect of the facility efficiency or improvements. We would be ready. So the reports at a high level that are in front of you today are for either for information or alternatively seeking a recommendation by the commission on how best to proceed after we have that initial concept that you endorsed. Moving forward, this helps us to validate it going into the design phase. So the first report that is on the agenda today relates to the engagement process. And it explains how we got to this point today through various stages, through the needs assessment that we started out in 2015, the feasibility study, and then it landed on this preferred concept. It talks about in this report how the public engagement process will move forward in the detailed design stage. It outlines several milestones that will be brought to the commission and to the board. These are information periods where you will be updated on the validation period and the design and development stage, and further to that, if and when we go to tendering. It provides details on specific target groups that the regional district will engage with these specialized interest groups and more closely work with over the next several months. The report is just for information, and it allows the commission to stay abreast of the steps that the Recreate project team will be taking over the next year. If you have any questions on the engagement plan or how it relates to the detailed design phase, I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ruck. Questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's Director Lee, or
Go ahead.
Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead.
Page 2, you know, Campbell River must get really sick of me always bringing these things up, but on page 2 of the report, it says the authority that has jurisdiction is Campbell River on this consultation. And, you know, Area D has been part of this this function since 1972. And we've put a lot of money into it, and I always attend the meetings. I don't think I've ever missed one in the past 29 years. So I think that it should recognize the report that Area D is a partner with Campbell River in this project, and that the authority having jurisdiction is the Strathcona Gardens Commission. It should be noted that Strathcona Gardens Commission is the authority having jurisdiction, and so that, you know, consultations about the changes to the plan should be hosted at Strathcona Gardens Commission. And if city wants their staff to have a say in the plan, we should all hear it. It shouldn't be us and them all the time. I'm so tired of having to say that, but I'm saying it again.
Thank you. And
If I may, Commissioner Lee, I certainly support your comments, and that it is recognized that this is a shared service between the city and Area D, and I don't think the report is in any way intended to not recognize that, but I'll leave it for Mr. Rack to respond.
Yes, thank you. Through the CEO and through the chair to the commission members, this the area of jurisdiction just involves that when we go to actual permitting and getting licenses, it does happen through the area of jurisdiction. In this case, the city of Campbell River, where the property and the development would be on. So just to the lens within the context of this report was that it is the validation of building and planning and development permits that would go forward to the city of Campbell River.
Well, I think the report should have stated that the authority having jurisdiction for permits and licensing and whatnot is the city of Campbell River, but the function is a partnership between Area D and the city of Campbell River. And when we're reviewing suggestions for changes or upgrades to the plan, it should come to the commission.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. And I think it's really important that we get this straight, because when we are talking to the minister, be it Area D or Campbell River or both, we have to be on the same page.
Yep.
We have to be rowing in the same direction if we're going to get anywhere. So I think that's really important.
Okay, Commissioner Gunner.
Just a response to Commissioner Lee, that the paragraph immediately before those 5 bulletins lays out that it's the regional district who has to reach out, and the regional district encompasses Area D and the city of Campbell River. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on this report? You know, I know I had a conversation with Mr. Leach earlier in the week that we're all sort of on pins and needles waiting to find out how what we are able to do next and how much do we communicate. So I guess we'll continue to ask the questions and hope that the announcement isn't delayed until the fall, because that could just put more challenges and delays into what we want to try and move forward. But staff, thank you for the report. Commissioner Lee, do you have anything further on the detailed design phase?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do know I've been watching the legislature, and they're on their last week of budget, discussing budget estimates for next year. So you might be able to capture some of that if you watch it at 7 o'clock tonight. They'll be rebroadcasting, and I've been watching for monies coming for other things. So you might hear it on there.
Thank you.
But this is the last week before the legislature breaks for the summer.
Right. Thank you. So hearing no further comments, I will call the motion on receipt. Is anyone opposed? That is carried. And on to item B, that the commission support the concept.
Move B.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, Mr. Yates.
I'm sorry. Did you not just call the motion on receipt of number 1?
I did.
Yeah, I think you jumped to number 2 there, yeah.
I did. I'm just eager. So on 2A, which is just receipt of the CAO report.
Move receipt.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Commissioner Grunrud, and seconded by Commissioner Evans. To the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll give this back to Corinne again.
So this second report, thank you through the CEO and through the chair to the commission members. This report brings to attention some of the legacy items that exist within the common spaces at Strathcona Gardens. And it was felt that it's very important at this stage that as we go through the validation period, that it's important through the detailed design process that if elements are going to be included, that we set the stage for that to happen. This staff report acknowledges that there are already elements of First Nations artwork located in the atrium, and that if the commission would like to consider expanding on the recommendations suggested in the report, that the Recreate project team engage with the local First Nations communities to incorporate a framework of local art into the elements of the design, and that staff would consider continue to seek out alternative sources of funding for the creation and installation of local artwork into the project. So the report in front of you talks about a number of different legacy items, of which one of those legacy items is some of the First Nations artwork. And there is 2 recommendations in the staff report for consideration for the commission.
Discussion, Commissioner Lee.
Yes, I have a question mark next to this. I don't know what the strategy is, maybe by having First Nations art, more First Nations art in our facilities would attract more funding opportunities. Maybe that's a strategy. But I feel strongly that it's a sports facility, and the people who participate in the sports up there would probably like to see more sports oriented art, like pictures of their heroes, pictures of, our gold medalists in swimming, and, maybe artsy pictures. But I think they would like to see that more than to see more First Nations artwork in there, because I think that would be more relevant to our facility. But if there's another strategy, undercurrent for this, focusing on trying to get more funding for our project, I'd like to hear it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lee. And I agree. We've got some great memorabilia items that are sports related that we want to showcase and continue to profile in a large manner, and also have opportunities for others for when we maybe are even more successful with local athletes on the world stage. But there is the reality that with the truth and reconciliation, there is an obligation to consider and engage and incorporate uh, Indigenous design and artwork into public features, and I think that could really complement the sports memorabilia that we want to showcase. I did speak to Mr. Leach 2 days ago, and yesterday afternoon had a conversation with Chief Roberts from the Weewacum, because the conversation that Mr. Leach and I had is, who do we engage with? There are multiple nations that either reside or are affiliated with the Strathcona Regional District. And as this is a City of Campbell River and Area D facility, then do we go, we need to be sensitive with who we are engaging with and recognizing. So with that, one of the thoughts or suggestions was that we engage with our Lake Wata nations within Campbell River, being the Weewakai and the Weewacum, and leave it with them as to what other nations are then engaged, being the Kluitzis, being the Namgis, being the Hamalko, but let the nations figure that out, and not for us to be put in that position. So, and that was sort of the consensus of the discussion as to how do we broach who we are going to engage with.
Well, and
Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Chair Adams, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. It's always the challenge of inclusivity and ensuring that again that we're not leaving anyone out. But I think the ownership of who First Nations consultation should happen with, it makes sense to me that it be through the Lekwitah. I did a little bit of research. There's a lot of new public spaces that are incorporating, great First Nation design, even in their lobbies, on the floors, as beautiful symbolism. I think there's lots of ways that things can happen, but I don't think we should be directive in this. I think we should be consultative in terms of engaging with Lekwitah and let them make recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
well, there are First Nation sports that are quite prominent in our facility, such as lacrosse. And we could have sports artwork like relating to the, our national sport, lacrosse, and recognize First Nations for their participation. And it's quite a strong lacrosse league with First Nations teams and down Chemainus and whatnot that would play in our facility that would really likely appreciate seeing that. And it's sports related. I just don't see looking at, like, you're not walking into an art gallery, you're walking into a sports arena and facility, and you want to see things that inspire you for sports and activity. It's not an art gallery. I don't agree with putting, things that really don't fit in there. So I would like to see it more, put our heads to what is more focused on sports.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Grunard?
I would just like to second Commissioner Evans' comments, and it's good to put it in their court and let them do the legwork and come back to us for approval if we decide to go this route. And there is many an Aboriginal hockey player has gone through the Campbell River minor hockey system and gone up through to play for the Storm, gone to play BC Hockey League, Western Hockey League. The names are numerous, and I'm sure those people would be supportive of some type of native type sports memorabilia artwork type thing to complement our facility. Thank you.
And understand, this is just to have that engagement. So it's just getting some direction as to how we have that engagement that will come back for not only the public, but the commission's consideration as to what that will ultimately look like. So, Ms. Garak, anything to add?
No, I do see Ron's hand up, but that's exactly it. It is for staff to start that consultation process and the Recreate team to engage and listen and bring that back.
My apologies, Commissioner Kerr. I was looking at the bottom and not the bar on the side. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. And you know, I think it depends on what the expectations from First Nations is. You know, when there, you know, words like framework, to me, I mean, when you're, I definitely like, not director, but Commissioner Lee have concerns and issues with this one. You know, it seems to me that governments are tripping over themselves to turn public buildings into First Nation designed facilities. And I think that's an overreaction. Certainly, I think First Nation element should be included in theme and design, but I don't think, I mean, I think it's like I say, an overreaction to turn this over to architects with the instruction, or turn it over to the First Nations with the expectation that this is going to be a First Nation structure. Because, you know, I mean, I think that non-First Nation design and culture should be just as celebrated and as part of these new buildings as a First Nation. I mean, integration, absolutely. But I think there seems to be an overreaction, and you know, and it's so tentative to me that I have this feeling that both, you know, staff and the board are going to be, you know, we don't want to step on anybody's toes. Well, you know, I think right now we're putting the board, and we're also putting staff in that position where they don't, you know, they don't know how to say no. And so I think this has come to us, and I think it should be, from my perspective anyways, really clear that there be elements just like they are in the existing facilities, but that doesn't limit your overall design theme or construction materials on and on and on to a First Nation lens. Absolutely, it should be part of it, but you know, it's just a total overreaction to, you know, from where I see this is going.
Okay, Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Worship. And you know, I think the intent here was not to be exclude non-First Nations work. I think the challenge that comes forward is we have to give clear direction to staff. So the word framework, I agree, you know, could be very subjective. And what does that mean? But I think the intent is really that we recognize that there's opportunities for First Nations to be represented. But I, in no way thought that there wouldn't be non-First Nations represented. So if the intent is to give direction, as the motion here states, to engage with the local First Nations community, I think the clarity for the discussion that I was having is just saying what First Nations community. And so if it's the Lekwitah, that was just definitive about who the contact should be. But a framework of local artwork and design elements could mean everything from 90% of the artwork is going to be First Nations. And I think we need to have further discussion on that in terms of what is the balance in the space. I see the balance in the space being representative, that there be elements. To me, elements are not the full design, they're just elements. So if there needs to be more clarity around that, if staff feels that they don't have clarity from the commission, then I do think we need to have further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And before I go to Mr. Leach, I was reading this and interpreting it exactly in the manner of what Commissioner Kerr and Evans and Lee are suggesting, because it is talking about incorporating or starting with engaging, and then it's in how we look at it for the overall design elements. So I don't have a problem with a framework of local artwork that's going to complement into the overall design elements. So I'm comfortable with it. I think it provides some latitude. I think we're all on the same page that this is a recreation facility that can be inclusive and representative of all cultures and people. So, Mr. Leach.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't need to say much because I think you summarized it quite well. I think what all of you has characterized is, why we brought this, right, to incorporate an aspect of it. There's going to be certain elements here where staff don't need the commission's input. There's going to be political issues. There's going to be sensitive issues here. And so that's what we brought this forward. And we are all on the same page because we're looking at incorporating an aspect of it. And if it gives you any comfort, that's what the resolution represents. And we will bring that back. But yeah, in no way is it going to be a 90% this because, you've supported this resolution. It's in incorporation, get the commission's endorsement on that, engage with the local First Nations, and then bring it back to the commission to see what you think.
And before we just go back to Commissioner Lee, just to address whether this is in here as an agenda to try to access other funds, that is not the intent. The intent is to be inclusive. However, should that opportunity arise, I'm sure we would take advantage of it. Commissioner Lee?
I don't know if people have noticed driving off the Inland Highway into Nanaimo, that their sports fields and whatnot have cutouts, metal cutouts of different sports people doing soccer or baseball or different sports. And I think that we should decide on what kind of, it doesn't have to be high art. It doesn't have to be like $1 million, carving or something. It could be, something like Nanaimo has where you have metal cutouts and you allocate, okay, there's 80% of the population that are non-Indigenous, and then there's the other percent. Let's have their sports all represented, that especially I think lacrosse is, I identify with First Nations for lacrosse, and maybe we could incorporate it that way and put it in a framework that's not, it fits the sports facility and not necessarily an art gallery.
Okay.
And not necessarily going to cost us an arm and a leg either.
Commissioner Kerr?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to refer to in the staff report, the paragraph that starts with symbolism and relevance would only, et cetera, et cetera. Now, reading through that total to me is applying to First Nations culture, heritage, landscapes, experience, expressions, but everything in that also to me, and I don't think it's always acknowledged, can be also addressed to non-First Nations heritage, culture, landscapes, experience. To me, they run side by side. I just don't, to me, in the report, it seems to be highlighted and maybe it's assumed that is normally embedded in one of our public buildings. But I think in these days, I think you have to also acknowledge the fact that non-European or non-First Nations or European culture, heritage, landscapes, experience, expressions also be embedded into our facilities.
Commissioner Grennerud?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just in consult or in conjunction with Commissioner Kerr's comments, that the next paragraph talks about existing stuff that's in the space already that would have to be transitioned over. Canada team, Sweden national women's team, world under 17, Rod Brindamore, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering if in the recommendations in item 2, if there's any wording that could be dropped that aims more at not having the building designed in an Aboriginal First Nations fashion, but just that some artwork and stuff be included in the project, i.e. dropping the design elements of and having it say framework of local artwork in the Recreate project. Or other words that could be eliminated, the engaged or the, engaged I think is good because we should be communicating with them and we should be incorporating something in the framework, but to what extent? The building design or just having areas in the building that First Nations art or that type of thing can be displayed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Leach, do you want to clarify? Because I think where members of the commission are getting held up a little bit is what does the word framework mean, and what does the words design elements mean, and is that too either encompassing or restrictive for us to move forward from what you've heard in the wholesome discussion?
Well, from my perspective, we try and hit the mark with the staff reports to give you, as much background information, and then we try and represent that in a resolution. But the discussion just is important. None of them is, set in stone. We're trying to get the direction from the commission, and this conversation is very useful for us. So I think sometimes we can get hung up on wordsmithing the resolutions, in that the staff have heard the input. I think we're all on the same page here, and again, we just try and represent that in the resolution. Sometimes we don't nail that right on the head, but through the discussions, I feel we're all on the same page here. We clearly understand the commission. The commission seems on the same page as well. And we want to see how we can, represent a First Nations design aspect into the facility, not dominate, not be 100%, not buy massive pieces, $1 million arts, but how are we going to incorporate something? And I feel like we're all on the same page, and this conversation is valuable, and we have got clear understanding of what the commission is supportive of, and also maybe what they're fearful of. So I feel comfortable with it, but ultimately you have to. And if if those resolutions don't hit the mark for you, happy to refine them a little bit.
Okay, thank you, and I would agree. I think we have Commissioner Kerr, then Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not honestly concerned that staff and you, Dave, are on. I think you do understand it, but as soon as you pass these kinds of issues over to modern day architects, they have a different sensitivity and they have a different, let's say, a different agenda, because that's what I'm afraid of is that part, not staff, but the architect's direction, and making sure, darn sure, that they don't, because especially big commercial buildings like this, look really great on their resumes, and these days that's a real, well, I won't say that expression, but anyway, okay. That's only my concern.
Commissioner Evans?
Thank you. And Commissioner Kerr basically said what I was going to say. I think the challenge is that we don't want to set up expectation that we're going to deliver on something through a consultation process that is not what we want to see done. And so it's kind of that by the means of consultation puts forward expectations that if suggestions are brought forward from the First Nations, that they're going to be incorporated. So it's more just, I think it's very much what Councillor Kerr said. We just want to make sure that, that yes, staff understand it, but then when it goes out for consultation, that we don't have unmet expectations. And the final question, Chair Adams, I was just going to ask is, what is the process then? Would it come back to the commission? We don't, we certainly don't want to invest design dollars in architectural renderings on producing something that, then we're going to be shocked by. But without getting down in the weeds, would the commission have an opportunity before it goes too far down the path to be able to look at what a framework looks like?
Mr. Leach and Ms. Garat, can you comment on that as to the reporting back and the steps in the process?
Yeah, I mean, we're clearly going to bring it back. I mean, I think an example of us bringing this to you is that, we know it's a sensitive issue. We want to make baby steps along the way and, make sure our communication with the designers and the architect is in line with the commission. So we will be bringing back in steps, our consultation with the First Nations and our discussions with the architect to have a little more detail for you to see the path we're going down before we get to the end of this. Because again, we're clearly aware and sensitive that, staff certainly don't want to make these kind of bold decisions and head down a path that you're not comfortable with. So we'll inch our way along here.
Thank you. Do you need clarification in the resolution to save Lake Watauga First Nation communities?
You can. I mean, one of I think a huge advantage we've had here at the regional district over the last few months is having Tina as our First Nations coordinator, and I think she's done a fantastic job and created some great relationships and given us some real great advice. So, you can change that to be more localized for certain, but Tina is really aware of the items that you've brought up and has some really great direction she's provided us. So either way, we're happy with it.
Okay, I would kind of lean towards to work with local Lake Watauga First Nation community as to how to engage the broader Indigenous population.
Sure.
Something in that regards. Commissioner Lee.
Well, I was just thinking about our new hospital, and how they, at the front desk, have wood thatched. It looks like a cedar basket up above the front desk, and it's just wood that looks woven and above, and it's not high art or anything, but it's a design element that does sort of refer to First Nations. But we have to be careful when we approach First Nations that we're not appearing to culturally appropriate their art, their culture into our facility, because to me it makes no more sense to do that than to go hang hockey jerseys in the longhouse on the foreshore. Makes no sense, you know. There's things that, you know, that work and there's things that might not work. So people might be sensitive to that. I know I wore a beautiful necklace, that silver necklace that the Vancouver Island Regional Library gave to me after my first 8 years on the board. And a First Nations person said to me, you know, that doesn't belong on you. That's First Nations, and you're not First Nations. So what are you doing wearing the necklace? Like, he was, you know, kind of feeling that it was cultural appropriation. And
Yeah.
so it has to, I think it has to be general. I think it should relate to sports because we're a sports facility and health and wellness facility. I think the hospital has some design elements in it that we could look at that would be, we might be able to do something similar. That just sort of in the background of the, you know, front entryway or something, have some, you know, like cedar basket type woven wood or something like that. That's very background.
And I think we'll have all of those options coming back, but I will say that being part of the hospital design, even the color palettes of the paint on the walls were shared with the input with our local Indigenous communities. So it's not necessarily an element or a feature, but it's more the environment. So, going to Mr. Yates, do we have the recommendation 1 is completed for receipt?
A is on the floor awaiting a vote, Mr. Chair.
For receipt.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to call receipt so we can move on. Is anyone opposed? That is carried, and then we're on item 2, and I'll open it up to the commission to put on the floor what you wish.
I will move option 2, that the commission support the concept of the Recreate project team engaging with local First Nation communities to incorporate a framework of local artwork in the design elements of the Recreate project. For discussion.
And we need a seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr, or Commissioner Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. You know, when I look over that motion, the word framework just jumps right off the page at me, because I just do not understand the implications. So incorporate local artwork in the design elements. To me, that's
So you're
that
amending.
so my amendment would be to remove a framework.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
I would
Another
like to,
amendment.
Yeah, I have Commissioner Lee.
I would like to see the word artwork taken out and just say to incorporate local design, First Nations design elements in the Recreate project. Like, not necessarily high art, just their elements of design. And I wouldn't want it to be, you know, I'm not interested in going to a sports facility to see artwork.
So you're looking for an amendment to remove the term local artwork.
To say the design elements, you know, we're
Okay,
going to
so you're looking to, so your motion is to remove local artwork from the motion.
Yeah, and just say we're looking to the First Nations for design elements of the Recreate project.
Is there a seconder? Hearing no seconder, I will move to Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Worship. And I do think it's important to make the distinction between local First Nations and Lakota. So I would like to amend this to say engaging with Lakota First Nation to incorporate. So removing local First Nation and making it Lakota First Nation.
Second.
Seconder, thank you. Discussion on the amendment?
So excuse my ignorance, but who does Lakota represent? Which bands do they represent? Is it the Weewikai?
We would come?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just those two? Because there's quite a few bands in our region.
Well, and that's where
But-
I would like to see that our engagement is with the Lakota, but for the Lakota to then determine how that branches out to incorporate the other nations that are within our regional district.
Comox is in Area D, and so is Claritzes.
Yep. So Councillor or Commissioner Evans, sorry. Anything further?
No, just what I might add, maybe for Commissioner Lee, is that there has been consultation through Lakota with other First Nations. So it's not that there hasn't been.
Okay, Commissioner Lee, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay, anyone opposed to the amendment? Hearing none. Anything further? Does the commission need the amended motion read back out just for clarity? Okay, Mr. Yates, could you do that, please?
I will give it my best shot, Mr. Chairman. That the commission support the concept of the Recreate project team engaging with the Lakota First Nation to incorporate local design elements of the Recreate project.
Everybody clear?
I didn't think we approved design elements.
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
thought we stayed with artwork.
Yeah, so did I.
Pardon me, my mistake. Yes, that is correct.
Artwork in the design elements, that's what it said.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's stayed.
Okay, so just to be clear, local artwork in the design elements of the Recreate project is in the motion.
Okay.
Okay, anyone opposed? That is carried. Item 3,
I will move item 3, that options for alternate sources of funding be explored to support the creation and installation of local artwork through various funding streams, including grants.
Second.
thank you. And I'll just point here that this is emphasize the word all, this is for all local artwork. This isn't any particular type. So
Correct.
seeing no hands, no comments, is anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Good discussion, and thank you to staff. Moving on to item 4, the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification Program.
Never see the report.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt again. Did you skip number 3?
No. Oh,
Yeah,
Oh.
sustainability and net targets.
I did. I'm looking on 2 screens here, so thank you for keeping me on track. So the
Okay, move receipt.
Right, well, let's finish off number 4, and then we can go back to 3.
Okay.
So on receipt, is anyone opposed? That's carried. And back up to the Recreate Sustainability and Net Zero Targets. Item A, the report to be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone opposed? And that is carried. And item B.
Move option A.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Again, my only question through to Ms. Garak or Wolfgang or Mr. Leach, going back to Commissioner Lee's question on another issue, does this maybe position us for funding opportunities?
So if I can answer if you would like. This staff report recommended the commission give a serious consideration to option B because it commits to the goals of the BC Climate Action Charter. There may be possibilities down the road of opportunities with sustainability initiatives on the table, but Wolfgang could maybe elaborate more on the recommendation in his staff report. Thank you.
Okay, Wolfgang, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, through the CAO to the commission. So with regards to option B, this is just to, the purpose of the report is to provide clarity and to be transparent, because I have been asked on what type of sustainability framework we're going to introduce to the Recreate project. And I hear the term net zero, and you know, it's not impossible, but it will be very difficult to accomplish a net zero building for a pool design. And so what we're trying to meet is trying to come out with options where we can meet in the middle. You know, in option B, we believe that that is the option that we have in place right now. So they're considering, you know, envelope and considering all of these design features that could be incorporated in the design that will get us to those targets that we have here that we are committed to. And what we're trying to do is when we reach the stage where we do the cost estimates, if we find out that these features are exceeding our budget, we can always eliminate them. But if we don't consider this, it will be very difficult to incorporate this into the future. So are there any opportunities to actually apply for funding? The answer is yes. There has been a series of funding programs that have been released. We will have to work with the design team, the QS, and our office just to find ways to actually apply for opportunities to get some funding to include this into the design.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So we have option A on the floor.
I would like to,
Commissioner Lee?
yes, speaking in favor of option A. I'm aware and I've heard construction association reports on the cost of construction right now. And I don't think that we should be going, I think we should definitely try to reduce our carbon footprint voluntarily, but I don't think we should fall into following LEED standards, or because those things are really expensive, and we're going to find that it's going to be hard enough to deliver the project within budget without adding on these boutique you know, concepts. And that's what I regard them as. They're discretionary, and I think we should give the public value for their money and deliver what we have to deliver, which is a sports facility. We don't have to deliver carbon neutrality. We don't have to.
Okay, thank you. Just before I go back to Wolfgang, I will be opposed to this motion. I think what we heard previously is that by entertaining option B doesn't mean we need to go 100% in. And if the costs do mean that they are exceeding our budgets or exceeding our capacity, then we will have the opportunity throughout the process to take that out of the process. But to not have it in there may mean missed opportunities that we could achieve. Commissioner Evans?
Thank you, Chair Adams, and I absolutely agree with you. I think in the report and in the description of option B, it also talks about the fact that it's difficult to change later. And we all know what happens sometimes when we do a project and don't build in some of these initiatives, and then to have to come back and do the work afterwards is even more costly. So I think the way that staff have written the description, to your point, it's just pre-planning, but doesn't necessitate that we would actually implement those plans if it negatively impacted the budget. So I just see this being a proactive planning exercise and determining. So I would be supporting option B, not option A. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Parada?
Yeah, so thank you so much. So directly to clarify that, yes, you're totally correct. We're not trying to introduce a sustainability framework like LEED. I agree with you that that is very expensive. That is not the intention of the report, and is just simply to be proactive. So if we could do something better to reduce the greenhouse emissions and do something better for the end users at the end in terms of different features that contribute to that, I think it's good. It's a good opportunity to look at this right now. If we have to do some value engineering at the end and remove some of these features because it doesn't fit our budget, and then we have the opportunity, but we don't want to go back and try to engage consultants and pay more professional fees to introduce something because we didn't do it from the beginning. That's simply the intention or the purpose of the report, and to provide clarity on how challenging it could be to have a building that would be net zero, especially since we have installed mechanical and electrical components of the building. With the $4.6 million that we received a couple of years ago, it will be very difficult to go for option 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would, Mr. Chair, I'd like to withdraw my motion. It's not getting any traction, so I would withdraw it and just
so
hope
with the-
that we're
so
not
with the-
instructing
so with
architects
the-
to.
Thank you. With the consent of the seconder? The mover is with, I'm sorry?
That was Cal, I think.
That was Commissioner.
I will, if it was me who seconded it, yes, I will approve withdrawing option A.
Okay, then the motion is withdrawn, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move option B.
Second.
And any further discussion?
So could this include like charging stations in the parking lot for electric vehicles and things?
Mr.
Or
Parada?
is it just the building?
Yeah, so thank you so much. Directly, we're still looking into those options. I'm unable to respond to that right now. We will have to finalize the schematic design drawing first and to see what's being proposed, and then we can provide an update to you and the rest of the commission.
Okay.
So on the motion, is anyone opposed? That is carried. And Mr. Yates, we move to closed session.
No.
Mr. Chairman, there's a report to be received and a motion to be passed should the commission wish to go to closed session. And then once the meeting has been terminated, there will be a brand new agenda that directors can go to for that.
Okay. So we're looking at OA is to receive the report.
Move OA, receipt of CAO's report.
Second.
Discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. And item B?
Move B to
Move
go in
B.
camera.
Okay,
Second.
thank you.
So just before we go in camera, how about the accessibility Rick Hansen one? Was there a motion on that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we missed that.
No,
No.
I was
No,
like,
we received it.
we did it.
Oh,
Yeah. it was
Okay.
received.
okay.
and the motion went through?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That was where I skipped the other one and went to that first, and then we went
Thank
back.
you.
Okay.
Just keeping everybody on their toes, including
Okay,
me.
good. Yeah, thanks.
So on B, anyone opposed? That is carried. So now we
Leave
we
and come
turn-
back.
do we do termination here or do we go to the close and then?
Motion to terminate, Mr. Chairman, would be in order, and then we can go directly to closed.
Thank you.
I'll make
Move
that
Motion to
motion.
termination.
terminate.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. Okay, we'll sign off and sign back in under closed.